Okay, welcome back to the agenda with your Missoula County Commissioners. I'm Dave Strohmeyer. I'm here with my fellow Commissioner, Juanita Vero, today, and hopefully we will be joined by our third Commissioner here midway through this riveting episode of the agenda. And
he's just in the hallway. We know he's on his way.
And we are glad to have an encore performance today from Matt Heimel, our very own planner and floodplain administrator for Missoula County. Welcome back, Matt.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Is that sincere? Okay.
I can say it with a little bit more conviction.
Okay. We like that conviction.
Let's hear it. How happy are you to be here?
I am.
This is an exciting day.
It's so exciting because I get to talk about floodplains, and I'm always talking about floodplain management in the office, but rarely am I just talking about it in a recorded format.
And we actually have some good news, some new news.
Some new news. I have updates about the floodplain map update.
Before we have updates about the floodplain map update, let's just go back to the very beginning here.
Okay.
What is a floodplain?
Oh, good question.
And the mapping piece, what does that amount to? And I'll just leave it open.
Okay.
Just roll with it.
So in the basic sense, the floodplain is the area of land that can be inundated, that's next to a water body, that is not normally covered in water. That can be just an area next to a stream, a river, next to the coast. And when we have floodplain maps that we published, those are constructs that we come up with to assess risk and probability of flood hazards. So we have.
So when you say we, I'm sorry, get a little hung up there. What does we mean?
So we as a community try to manage flood risk through working with developers and identifying areas that are prone to flooding. One of the ways that we manage flood risk is by participating in the National Flood Insurance Program. And in the National Flood Insurance Program, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, prepares new floodplain maps. FEMA makes flood hazard determinations. Those get published. And for a community to be eligible to have its residents purchase flood insurance and receive aid during a disaster, the community must reference those floodplain maps, which were created by FEMA, and regulate according to those maps.
So let's unpack this just a little. So this whole flood insurance thing. So I think I know the answer, but I'll let you enlighten me nonetheless. Why would someone participate in the National Floodplain Insurance Program versus other types of insurance that folks think of where I just find an insurance agent and get insurance for my home? Is there some advantage, or is this the only tool that might be available to some individuals?
Private flood insurance is available. However, flood insurance purchased through the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, that has the backing of the federal government.
Okay.
And there are other programs, mitigation grants that are available through FEMA.
What happens if the county chooses not to adopt the new maps? Why are we even being asked to adopt the new maps?
Well,
we, the county, I'm sorry.
So the condition for the county or any community that's in the NFIP is to adopt regulations that reference the maps that FEMA will publish. By doing so, there's a national standard of map products.
But if the county chooses not to adopt the new maps,
Yeah, just game it out. So if hypothetically we decide, you know what, FEMA, we don't like the way you do this mapping, and it's just creating a lot of confusion in our community. We're just going to say thanks, but no thanks. We'll not have these.
Then we get
FEMA floodplain
no
maps.
aid, no assistance.
Right. There are some consequences there. So if the county were to decide we're not going to adopt regulations that reference these maps, nobody in the county would be able to purchase flood insurance through the NFIP.
Okay.
But you could do it privately if you wanted to. Even if the county did not choose to adopt, you could still purchase insurance.
You could. It might not be the best option there. Now, also there's a federal law that when FEMA has published effective flood insurance rate maps, if somebody wants to get a federally backed loan, like a mortgage on that property, they need to buy flood insurance. So if the county is not participating in the NFIP or is not meeting its obligations under the NFIP to regulate referencing those maps, then those home purchases will not go through if they need that flood insurance purchase. Also, if then we're not participating and we experience catastrophic damaging flooding, that disaster aid will not not be here.
Avail to
so that's a big deal.
It is.
And I guess just going back to the insurance thing, I don't know why I'm stuck on insurance today, but is it the case that if we adopt regulations that reference the maps, that anyone who lives in a floodplain is guaranteed access to the National Floodplain Insurance Program versus, I'm just speculating, since we see this happen with fire insurance for folks living in the urban wildland interface, that there are cases where private insurers simply say, no, we're not going to insure you. Is there some assurance that the NFIP is available to everyone and not this sort of roll the dice whether some insurance carrier will provide coverage?
Yeah, so anybody in the county can purchase flood insurance through the NFIP. They don't even need to live specifically in a mapped floodplain.
Oh.
They don't need to own the property. They can be a renter getting what's called contents coverage.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yep, and regular homeowners insurance or renters insurance is not going to cover these floods.
Damage.
So that's where the flood insurance comes in. And back to your question, one of the main backing points for the NFIP is just that it has that federal backing. You can't actually buy it directly through the NFIP. You have to go through an insurance company, and the NFIP sets the prices. So the price is set there, and it has that backing, but you're still dealing with these companies. So FEMA itself isn't going to act like an insurance company there.
Right.
Okay, this is
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so now if someone's property is now mapped in the floodplain, these new maps that have just come out, do they have to move? Or what do they have to do to modify their property in any way?
So if somebody is looking at these preliminary maps and they're seeing, wow, I'm now in the floodplain and I was not in this mapped area before these maps came out, they don't have to move. They don't have to do anything to their structure. They might need to have a conversation with a lender in case there are insurance requirements, but at the county level with what we deal with, no one has to start changing their house because they're in the floodplain. Now, if someone wants to start doing new construction, and after the maps become final, and after the county is required to update its regulations, yes, we'll have development standards that apply to those areas, but just because somebody's seeing these new maps now doesn't mean they have to change their house. Now, there are steps people can do within the floodplain because these maps that are prepared by FEMA reflect the best science and data that we have now to reflect the probability of flood hazards on the Clark Fork, Bitterroot, and Rock Creek. So I always recommend to people, think about retrofitting. If you're seeing your house in this preliminary floodplain and it was built before anyone knew about flood hazards there, it wasn't built to any sort of elevation contemplating that floodwater, they might have a crawl space or a basement that's built lower than what that floodwater will be at when we have a major flood. They might have utilities or mechanical equipment that's down there. So there's a lot of mitigation steps people can do. Some of it, most of it does involve some degree of permitting through the county to make sure that it's done safely and it's done right. But I think retrofitting is a major part and also a major opportunity that we have, especially during our season where we're drier and people can think about doing work on these structures.
And we now have a full complement of
Slotnick
county
just
commissioners.
arrived.
Yes, I was saving a cat in a tree.
Did you cut down the tree?
I broke it with my bare hands.
Excellent. Excellent.
Said cat.
Back to, again, so people to manage folks' expectations, what specific rivers and streams are you talking about with these new maps?
So these new floodplain maps being published by FEMA are related to the Clark Fork, the Bitterroot, and Rock Creek.
Just those three?
Just those three.
And none of the tributaries of those. So
No.
if you live on Grant Creek, for instance, this is not.
Or Lolo Creek.
Or
Right.
You
Those
name your
usually.
favorite tributary.
Yeah.
That's right. Those
Okay.
maps are staying as is. We had new maps for the Swan River in 2019, Clearwater 2023, but a lot of our other floodplains are going to remain as is. Hopefully we get updates soon, but this update started in 2019. I think it's 2025.
Okay.
Last time I checked.
It is still.
It is still
So
2025.
I guess fill us in on what has happened since the last time we met, and what is the looking out into the future? Where are we going with all of this?
Yeah, so the last time we met, it was November of last year, and we were under the impression that the preliminary maps, which we have now, were going to come out within a couple of weeks of last November. And what happened is we found out that that was going to be delayed because the floodplain map for the Clark Fork River near the Orchard Homes levee needed to be essentially reanalyzed. So the Orchard Homes levee runs roughly west of Reserve Street, south of the river, towards Tower Street, Kerwall Drive, Stone Street area. And what we were seeing with the prior draft maps that we had was that the area on the landward side of the levee, being the south side that's closer to 3rd Street, was all being mapped as floodway. So
Even though there was a levee there.
Even though there is a levee there. So to back up just a little bit, when we're dealing with a 100-year floodplain or a floodplain that has a 1% chance of inundation in any given year, that's called Zone AE in FEMA speak. And these detailed studies are split into an area that's the floodway and the flood fringe. Speaking generally, the floodway is the main flood carrying channel of the river. That's where we think the water will be the deepest and the fastest. There's a lot of technical information in the flood insurance study about the floodway, its surcharge, volume, and the velocities of the water. But if you have a levee, even if it's not a levee that's built to the 100-year flood, think that's not going to be the main carrying channel of the river. So this study started in 2019. The hydrology and hydraulics, or the volume of the water and how that water is behaving across the landscape, that was developed in the couple years since. And then afterwards, we had a new mapping guidance technical document created by FEMA about how to deal with levees and floodplain mapping in these kinds of contexts. And it turned out that newer mapping guidance by FEMA resulted in these sort of areas where you have this levee don't need to be shown as a floodway, because if a levee is not accredited or not built to the 100-year standards, it would sometimes essentially be ignored by the flood model and treated as if it's not there. Well, it turns out we can treat some of these constructed elements as if they are there to some extent, knowing that it's not built to the full 100-year standard, so it doesn't need to be a floodway. So the consequence of this, what it actually results in those areas that were the floodway in the draft maps, are still 100-year floodplain, but they're called flood fringe, which still has hazard to it. It still has the same insurance rules, the same floodplain regulations would ultimately end up being applicable to these areas, but the floodway is the most restrictive area. That's where we need to make sure that we have the least amount of development and alteration, because that's where we need the floodwater to really go and be able to flow. And so the preliminary maps reflect that change.
So what's our timeline now then? So where are we at now?
Well, right now we're in this interesting period where the preliminary maps are out there, and we have information posted by the county about how to access this information and interpret. But in the short term, we're in this period where the preliminary map flood hazard information is published by FEMA. Everyone can review this information to understand what areas are shown, how the flood hazards are working in separate areas.
And can it be disputed or argued, or can a landowner, ground truth the maps, or
it can eventually. So we have a few steps to go through. The first step is what's called a consultation coordination officers meeting, or it's coordination consultation officers meeting, CCO for short. And that's going to be when the State Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, DNRC, and FEMA officially present the maps. It's a little awkward.
So they've not officially been presented yet.
They have not officially been presented. Okay. It's a little awkward because the maps are out there. And then months later, or
then they get their coming out party.
Exactly. Yeah. The map coming out party. That's a presentation, and that explains what the next steps will be. So then eventually, some months after CCO meeting, when the county and stakeholders are presented with the preliminary maps, then the comment and appeal period opens. And that is really FEMA's show. So FEMA will accept comments and appeals to the maps. I'm involved. I have a really fun role in that. I accept the comments and appeals, and I relay it to FEMA and DNRC, but I, as the county floodplain administrator, don't have a reviewing or decision-making role in a comment or a appeal.
This is important to know. So it's all on FEMA to review any disputes as far as an individual property owner's sense of whether their property actually is in the floodplain or not. That's on FEMA to you take the initial pass, and then
we don't adjudicate that.
Yeah,
you don't
but
that.
It's just going through you as like an FYI in a sense.
Well, we are the repository for all the maps and the appeals, so I essentially am logging them, relaying them.
But you can't Right. You don't
make it.
can't
FEMA
review.
makes the decision.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm expecting
Do you
some
make
people...
a recommendation or anything? Do you speak to it, or are you just a pass-through?
I'll talk with people about it. I think it's going to come down to case by case. I'm expecting people will come to our office on Main Street and want to talk about it.
But you don't make a formal recommendation to FEMA.
Right, that's right.
And I guess just prime the pump for folks out there who might be thinking, you know what, these maps that are out there, even though they've not formally been introduced, if you will, this doesn't reflect what I'm seeing out my kitchen window on my property. In a case like that, what sort of information should folks be thinking about that they would need to provide to FEMA? Because presumably it's more than just, I've never seen any water out there. They're likely going to need some more formal defense of their position.
Right, so these maps, as we all know, have been a long time coming. They've been worked on since 2019, and that involves multiple rounds of engineering review by FEMA engineers, contractors, subcontractors. There's multiple layers of review, quality assurance, quality control, catching
And who paid
errors,
for all that
mistaken
work?
The DNRC and FEMA through grants under a program known as Risk Map.
Not the county.
Right. And that quality assurance results in preliminary maps that have a much higher standard than even the draft maps had, which already went through a long study process. So we say comments and appeals because someone can provide a comment. Most of what I think we're going to hear are comments, and those don't result in a change. They might result in some response by FEMA, but to really appeal these maps, it's going into the study that has been prepared and proving that it is scientifically or mathematically wrong.
This sounds like something you'd need to hire a consultant to help you with.
That's right. So typically it's going to be a registered engineer, and they're going to need to, again, prove that it's mathematically or scientifically wrong and prepare what the correct version would be. It's a challenging process, but it's something that's afforded by FEMA during a 90-day period, which will, again, start some months after the
That 90 after
CCL.
the map coming out party. That's when that 90-day period.
Right. And we don't know exactly when that is right now, but we know it's going to be after the map coming out party.
Probably after the government opens up again.
that.
Sure,
Oh,
add
that.
that. So if people listening out there want to know where we're at in this process and what's happening next, is there some spot like a dashboard or something like that they can look at?
Missoula County Voice is our one-stop shop for all things floodplain and engagement. The county floodplain administration website that gets a little deeper in the details, and there's a lot of cross-linking between those two.
Great. All right. I'll do the last one then. Sorry again to have come late. Well, Matt, I know from watching you from a distance that floodplains aren't the only thing you're interested in.
That's right.
Yeah. So anything you've run across in podcasts you listen to, songs you listen to, books you read, conversations you've had, where you feel like, wow, that was a real interesting little nugget of wisdom, I'm holding on to that you might want to share.
So I am obsessed with electric guitar.
Because
I tried last year.
I tried to link you up with Tom McGuire, but I think you both might be too shy to chat with each other.
We exchanged a couple messages, but yeah, we're both
He's a
probably
serious
pretty shy.
virtuoso and
wow.
such a good person, good and kind person.
Guitar players were kind of like cats, you know.
I think
Like
you
the
guys
one
would
you cut
benefit
in
from
the
chatting with
tree.
each other.
I think so.
Yeah.
But in a year, okay, so this is what you did talk about electronic guitars last year.
Yeah.
I did. I mentioned, were they probably books by Ted Green? I think I mentioned. Now I have a new book I'm going through by Brett Stein. It's called In the Mystery, and it is about all the harmony, technique, songs by Alan Holdsworth, who is an absolutely crazy fusion guitar player, if no one's ever heard of him.
Where is Alan? Is Alan still alive?
Alan had passed away, sadly, but he left quite a legacy.
Can you
for
spell this last
fusion.
name?
Holdsworth, Holdsworth. I hope I just passed the spelling bee.
That's nice.
But
We're not going to ask you to use it in a sentence.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Great.
Awesome.
With Holdsworth, what's he make you feel, or why?
Ooh, going deep today.
Well, I want to better, because I am not musical at all. I don't even sing or bang on a dashboard or hum in the shower. So
It's a sense
you're reading a
of-
book about music.
Yeah. Read a book about music and learn how to craft the sounds for an unrestricted sense of spiritual freedom. Because
that sounds really good.
what Alan Holdsworth is using, and also guys like Pat Martino too, they're taken advantage of the guitar's unique layout to use symmetry in our 12-note system. So whether you're using splitting up a 12-note sequence in half, in thirds, or in quarters, diminished, augmented, or whole tone, and other modes of limited transposition, meaning they're not going to repeat themselves cleanly. They sound kind of weird. Sometimes they just sound awful. But if you learn to arrange them in a palatable way, you can come up with some great ways to navigate music.
I think he should bring his guitar in.
No
the next
kidding. I was just thinking we should have a whole podcast series where we have subject matter experts from within the county talk about something they're not known to be
fun.
subject
Yes.
matter experts on. Where Matt does guitar and Gina Miller does bow hunting.
Yes.
That's a passion of hers.
Wow.
Oh, thanks so much,
Thanks, Matt, for coming in.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for doing this hard work and for making yourself so available for all the people who are interested and affected.
Much
Absolutely.
appreciated.
Thanks for listening to The Agenda. If you enjoy these conversations, it would mean a lot if you'd rate and review the show on whichever podcast app you use.
And if you know a friend who would like to keep up with what's happening in local government, be sure to recommend this podcast to them.
The Agenda with the Missoula County Commissioners is made possible with support from Missoula Community Access Television, better known as MCAT, and our staff in the Missoula County Communications Division.
If you have a question or a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email it to communications@missoulacounty.us.
To find out other ways to stay up to date with what's happening in Missoula County, go to missoula.co/county updates.
Thanks for listening.